All right. Party people in the place to be, vandals and apocalyptic cowboys. We are back with a brand new edition of Pink Spots. This is a short form version of Pink Buzz where we talk about a single book and our just admiration and love for it. This week we are talking about in what is, in my opinion, the best comic of the past 15 years. Like Joey said in the intro, modern day masterpiece. Joe, what is up this week, man? What we talking about?
We're talking about East of West. Man, this book is fucking awesome. The art is great, story's great, the characters are great, the fucking everything's great about it. It's awesome.
Right.
Like
I
you
mean, it
said,
just blends everything. Like you get
yeah,
cowboys, you get kung fu, you get cyberpunk, you get biblical, apocalyptic nightmare fuel. It's beautiful, man. It's all just
mm,
woven together just
mm,
perfectly.
yeah.
But before that, we're gonna do a check-in. Joey, what have you read this week that you really just want to shout out?
I didn't get much reading done for my floppies. I just went Monday to pick the stuff up. Hey Juan, what's up?
What's up,
And
JP?
yeah, so I this is one that when I picked it up, Daisy. I read it right away. This book has been awesome. Love it. Colin Lorimer's been doing a fantastic job on this one, man. Great stuff. And issue three is no different than one and two. I mean, fantastic, fantastic book. Uh, a scout book by the Cult of Icarus. Some vampire, modern vampire type stuff. The art is awesome. It's kind of got pretty like punk rock vibe to it. So it's like vampires and the if they went punk, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they
Um,
also the creators of that just finished a Kickstarter, right? The
Mayhem.
Lady
Yeah,
Mayhem. Yeah, it
Lady
looks
Mayhem. Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. I backed that one too. So yeah. So I read this. So I'm pretty happy. I think Lady Mayhem's going to be fucking awesome too because this book was very good. And a little Rick and Morty action. This is, I think, the final story for the Dungeons and Dragons series they did with Troy Little on art and Jim Zub writes it. And it's the Meeseeks Adventure. So if anyone knows Rick and Morty, well, it's a whole story with the Mr. Meeseeks. So it was pretty funny. I chuckled a little bit. So yeah, that's some good stuff. Those are the three books I had read, and I might as well show this off. I got the second volume for the omnibus of
Show that
Mad
sexy baby
Men.
off, man. Look at that thing,
Yeah,
dude. That
yeah,
is a book. Like
that is
that
big.
that's a dead
Mm,
foot if it falls on one though, man.
yeah,
Like
man.
we're
Like,
talking foot killer.
yeah, see how big that is, man? That's like boom. Yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah, it's awesome.
I
Awesome stuff.
love that Mike Allred.
Yeah.
As for me, I got really lucky. Richard Morgan let me read Bam and Glam issue 3 ahead of schedule. I can't say anything about it, but yeah, dude, it's amazing. Like he nailed what he was going for. Everything he talked about on the show with us, he totally achieved in this issue, and I can't wait for everybody else to read it. It's that damn good. And then today we got the PDFs for Jeremiah Espinoza's Hollowed North, and oh my God, dude, that's a wonderful book so far. I mean, it's emotionally just hits you hard. It's on some Jeff Lemire level of like emotional, just gut punch, but it's a lot more horrific and I think scarier than Jeff Lemire's horror stuff. Like the goblin thing or whatever it is that messes with the kid in this. It's utterly terrifying. So yeah, imagine like Babadook if Jeff Lemire did it, and like that's kind of what this kid's got set up with the Hollowed North. And yeah, dude, like I'm really happy to have backed it. And whenever he does the second issue, man, try to get a hold of issue 1 and 2 because it's a series that most people are going to want to check out, especially with just how stellar horror comics have been. But this is another really good one to just throw on your radar.
Do you think it's gonna get picked up by a publisher?
I don't see why not, man. I could totally see this on Scout, and Scout loves Kickstarter books, and
Yeah.
it really just really fits in with their style of stuff.
Man. Cool. Very
And then
cool.
Yeah, I've actually wanted to talk to him for a while, so maybe we could get Jeremiah on the show, and we can force Adrian to give him an intro to to Scout. You like get that Canadian on here with his wonderful, wonderful Hawaiian shirts and
Yeah,
put him to the fire.
we're gonna have to have him back on now. I think they're getting some stuff sorted out for the Scout Comics thing, and once he's got a little more info that he can talk about, we'll definitely have him back on, and we can get get the lowdown on what's going on with that, with Trakovi going to Scout Comics. Yeah.
Pow pow. But rolling right into the main feature, we are going to be talking about East to West. We're only going to be talking about the beginning of the series to stay fair. I don't want to spoil anything, so we're going to be talking about the first two trade paperback story arcs, and yeah, we're going to be getting deep into what we what we kind of want to talk about with this because there is so much to unpack and so much to talk about, but it's better to just, kind of cover the beginning, give people a fair chance because it seems to be as good of a book as it is, one that I know a lot of people still haven't read. So,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
I
I
want to
don't
I want
think.
to get people interested. I don't want to tell them that I don't want to read them the book.
Yeah, I don't think it gets enough praise. Like everyone talks about Saga, and I read the first three trades of Saga, and it didn't hook me the way this book did. Like as far as myself personally, I enjoyed East of West of what I've read of more than Saga than what I've read of Saga. I'm going to continue reading Saga, but I think East of West was definitely a book that hooked me a
I
lot more and that
absolutely
I
adore
enjoyed.
Saga.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the premier comic books. It's really good for people who need to get into indie comics. It's a great book for that. But I agree with you. East to West shits all over it as
Mhm.
far as like scope and storytelling and just sheer brilliance. No disrespect to Saga. It is, like I said, it's a masterful book. Brian K. Vaughan, he made wonderful things with it. Paper Girls is even better than Saga, though, in my opinion. Like even Brian K. Vaughan's topped Saga, in my opinion. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
of course, this is East to West. You want to cover the credits, or you want me to do it, Joey?
You might as well do it because I don't have them in front of me and I don't want to screw up
All
anyone's name.
right. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
we got written by, of course, the great Jonathan Hickman, pretty much the god of anything besides the stuff he writes at Marvel. We have art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, and letters by Russ Wooten. The veritable Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which is kind of fitting for this book. Joey, you want to kind of start with the story on this?
Yeah, the story starts out where, if I recall properly, the intro is where the horsemen wake up, right?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
or is it, yeah, where the three people wake up and there's one tomb, like there's a circle with like an emblem, or I call them a tomb, but wake up and there's one missing. So there's the three horsemen. There's supposed to be four. You have conquest, famine, war, and death. And conquest, famine, and war wake up and see that death isn't there, so that he abandoned them or betrayed them. So they're on a quest to go find death and kill him to right some wrongs or get revenge for something death had wronged them for. And that's how the story starts. And it's done beautifully. Like I love the scene after where they pull out after you have that initial scene that kind of explains, and you just see like, because each one is represented by a color. I think conquest is blue, war is always red, and famine always has like this yellow and green gray tones to it. And then when they pull out the panel, you have a full shot, and there's a lot of full page uh, uh, shots in this, which are just fantastic and beautiful. And you see like kind of like a smoke going up with a tint of the color of each person, and then it skips to the next scene where I believe they go into the history of the future of the United States and how it came to be, and they explain kind of how the Confederacy. You have the Endless Nation, which is the indigenous people. You have New Shanghai, I believe,
Yep.
and what's the other one?
The
The one
not
that
the
the
yeah
yeah.
the African American peoples.
Oh, that's the
What's
kingdom. Yeah, and
the
then there's the other
kingdom?
one with the president, Madame President. There's another one there, and I don't remember what that one's
I
called.
think it's just called the nation, right?
The nation, maybe. And there's like
No, no.
this rock. Yeah, the rock in the
The
middle where they,
armistice is what it's called.
yeah, and they all sign that the treaty or the understanding to keep peace amongst all the ruling cities, kingdoms, or regions, or whatever you want to call. And they kind of give you a brief synopsis or uh, uh, on that, and then I think it kicks into the first introduction of I don't know.
Death.
I don't know what you want to call them. I don't know if I call them the White Walkers or what, because all three of them are white, right? Where he just comes
Well,
into that.
Not Crow. Crow, she's black with white details.
Yeah, but she's still pretty. Anyway, they're all pretty similar in like style, and they do make a one hell of an entrance, like where he just slams the doors open, those old Western style doors, and they walk into that bar, and yeah, right away. I mean, all hell breaks loose right from the get go. They just wipe the floor with everyone in that place, and they're looking for information on where to find. Uh, um, what are
Something
they
that
look?
was taken. They're looking for something that was taken from death when he was supposedly killed with the other horsemen the last time
Yeah,
they were on Earth. Like I think it's the best way to put it for now.
yeah, and the barkeep there is kind of he's a barkeep, but I like it's known that if you want to know something, this guy knows pretty much anything and everything that's going on. So they go see him to get this information, and uh, it's pretty cool. Like this book definitely just to set the tone of it is it's kind of a mix of many genres. You got like western, sci-fi, uh, you have horror elements in it. You have, like you said, even kung fu kind of style elements, and they mishmash all this together. So all the characters have like these kind of strange designs. Like the barkeep has a metal patch over his eye, and it's weird because the eye comes out right and walks around and talks,
Yeah,
and
it's like a
it's
kind of a spidery type thing, but like
yeah,
it's
it's got
gooey.
little
Yeah.
legs. Yeah, it's really weird. And then you see the gaping hole where his eye used to be. And then anyway, death is threatening him, and yeah, for the information. And the guy gives it up eventually, and so then they move on to uh, he goes to assassinate the president because death was wronged as well. Like you said, something was taken from him, and he's going to exact revenge on the people who took it from him. And the first person he goes, and that's the scene in the background here on the banner, is he goes and finds the president, and he kills the president. That's his first target, and by doing so, that begins a chain of events that's the catalyst for this story moving forward. After the president is killed, the nations get together. The horsemen come back and set them to task to find death and kill him. And this starts the what do they call it? The message, right? They have to
Yeah.
follow the message, and so this is the first step of the message. The apocalypse is coming, and so they have to follow what the message says, which is kind of like uh, that's a spin on like on the church religion, Catholicism that ruled over North America in its infancy. Right, it was most expeditions to North America were funded by the church, so that's kind of a twist on that. Like this whole story is kind of like what did you call it, Johnny? Uh,
Alternate history, but
Alternate history. It's kind of got that kind of vibe to it. Yeah.
yeah, then you got all this other stuff thrown on top of it. You got the pseudo religion. That's the thing I love best about this is because this book dips so far into political, geopolitical and religious themes very heavily. But the thing is it never goes into a specific religion. It's not specifically a Christian type
No,
type narrative, even though you have certain things from the Bible, like the Four
mm,
Horsemen. The religion in the book is almost its own thing. It's made
it's
up
its
for the
own thing,
book. Yeah,
but
which
it
I
kind of
appreciate.
Yeah, but it kind of mirrors, like you said, like an alternate history of America, right? So yeah, which is pretty cool. And you kind of you see it right from the start. Like you see, okay, they're going to touch on this, they're going to touch on that, and even when the nations together come together and sign the treaty or whatever, where uh, like you see, it's like one of the
There are splits and there are daggers being stared at each other from every
yeah,
angle. There are
yeah,
certain ones that want to take the other ones down, and other ones that are friendly with each other. And yeah, you kind of really get into play with that. One of my favorite things about this book is that the world itself is the main character of probably the beginning of the book. You probably got to get into about the fourth trade paperback before the actual characters start becoming as involved in the story as the world itself is, which I thought was such a neat narrative tactic. I'd never really seen it done in American comics. So like that's another thing that hooked me right away is the art style and the way Hickman wrote this. Very, very similar to something that like Alejandro Jodorowsky or some other European masters would pull off. So that is it's a really neat thing.
yeah. Like one specifies here, he specifies there's 8 nations in the book: the Confederacy, the Kingdom, uh, Armistice, the Burning Plains. Yes, the Burning Plains. Yeah, that there's some cool scenes from the Burning Plains. The Endless Nation, which is the Indigenous Nations, the Republic of Texas, and the PRA,
And the
which
PRA is
is
pretty much the regular America, but they're ran by Satanists. They're like the one chick
yeah,
who's like her name's like legit LeVay, if
yeah,
you
yeah.
so
Madame, she becomes once the president gets assassinated by death, she becomes sworn in as the new president, Madame President Antonia LaVey. Yeah, and all the
total play on
character.
Anton LaVey, yeah, the
Yeah,
ex
yeah.
ex leader
And
of the Satanic Church.
yeah, and yeah, and like there's a little play on everything, like the kingdom, the son of the king, the prince is John Freeman. Like just the name Freeman, the free. Like there's a bunch of little plays on everything throughout that it's fun. Like I mean, they're obvious and but that's fine. Like I mean, it's fun and I don't know. I really dug it. It was I don't know, like the art with the story together, like it's just perfect. Like the gunplay in it too, the way they draw it is fantastic.
Yeah, even when
Like
it's over the top, like there's that one part where Death kills the guy with his horse. Like his horse is like this kind
yeah,
of weird rocket thing with legs,
yeah,
and there's this one thing part where it kind of just it bends down and like instead of using it as propulsion, he just uses it to waste this guy. And it's probably one of the coolest things like that I've ever seen in a comic book. So even like when they do things like that with the weaponry, it's badass.
yeah. And the representatives of each nation, you have, like you said, Antonia LaVey, you have Andrew Archibald Chamberlain, who represents the Confederacy, who this character is probably my favorite villain ever introduced in a book, probably all time. Probably it's in my top 3. Like as a villain, this character is fantastic. Like I mean, his design, his look, uh, he's sly, he's cunning, he's even a badass, man. When it comes time for action, dude's kick ass. I mean, he's just you're a fantastic villain, like perfect. It's perfection as a villain. Uh, you have Ezra Orion, who is the priest of. He's the one who interprets the message for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Chaveo, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he is the leader of the nation. Who else do you have? You have uh, I don't know the name of the leader for the Death's girlfriend, his wife, Zale.
Yeah, Mao Zedong,
Yeah,
Xiaolin.
Xiaolin. Yeah,
Yeah, the House of Mao, they're
Mao.
all
Yeah,
descendants of Mao Zedong, so
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's cool. Like I mean, the way the way they develop each character too, as you go, like you say, they kind of set up the world in the earlier parts, which is why it took me about 2 trades before I really, really got into it. Like, I thought it was good for the first couple trades, and then near the end of the second trade, so I'd say about 8 issues in, then I really got, because they set the world. They do a great job of setting up the world, like you said, and then they start digging into each character, like their motivations, what they're trying to get out of it, and without revealing too much, like just a little peek behind the curtain. So then you're like, then it hooks you, right? Then you're like, you want to know what happens next. So you read that next issue and you read that next issue, and Hickman does a fantastic job of just pulling the curtain back just ever so slowly, but still giving you a lot to digest, right? And there's a lot of action in it, which is fantastic. And the action scenes, Dragotta does a fantastic job with the action scenes. Like I said, like the gunplay and all that stuff. It's the character designs are,
The martial arts fights with Xiolin, man, are really
yeah.
beautiful too.
And I think, what is that, issue 22?
Is
That's
that
the
the war
silent.
between the Confederacy and the
No,
and the oh
no, that's the silent issue.
yeah, I love that. That's my favorite
That
issue of the
that's
book.
like, there's one issue out of the 45, and there's the only time there's any dialogue or any words is on the final page. The rest of the book is completely silent, which is fantastic. Issue 22, really, really good. Another character that I dug throughout it was the Ranger. His name's Thomas. I don't know what his last name is, but he has a little sidekick, which is he calls Red. It's like a robotic dog, he's so fucking cute. I love that character. It's so great. Like the dog, I love the dog more than Ranger
Oh,
himself. But
I like
Ranger's
the
a
I
pretty
like
cool character.
I like the design for the Texas Rangers because they look so 1960s TV show. They got the weird goggles with the
Yeah,
cowboy look and stuff too. They kind of look
with a little
cyberpunk. Yeah.
oxygen thing for their to breathe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really neat look, man. Like they came up with a really neat looks for all these characters. Like,
Mm.
and one thing you talked about the Endless Nation. One of my favorite things is how technologically advanced like the natives are in it. They have like these flying ships that are like these just weird squares. I mean, like, oh, dude, like, and it's just rendered so beautifully.
But that's where I'm like, there's little things that he does that's kind of funny and fun, because you know nations are more spiritual. They usually rely more on spirituality than technology. But in this book, they just like 180 it, right? And they're the most advanced nation, and when it comes to technology and stuff. So it's fun how he just takes something and just turns it on its head and goes with it, right? And that was a fun little twist, that the indigenous nation, the endless nations, are the most advanced in technology in this book, in the new America, which is kind of fun, and a different take on it for sure. And
Yeah,
that's
and
kind of what
they're the
that
biggest
that
threat too. They're the ones that
yeah.
everybody wants to avoid having to deal with throughout the entire book, having to start shit with. So it was kind of a neat, like you said, neat change of pace for the way that
Hmm.
the race is usually thought of, in a lot of other media.
Yeah, and that plays a big role too, because you have Wolf, right? He plays a pretty big role, Wolf and Crow, who accompany Death in the beginning on his journey, which they kind of separate eventually and kind of follow their own paths, which is pretty cool, because all these characters eventually will get, sometimes they get their own issue, right? Where he elaborates on their story a lot more. And I really dug those issues where he like focused more on one character and really elaborated that character's story. But it's in such a way that it's crucial to the story. Then they elaborate, which is fantastic, and I love that. You get these in depth, like, just issues where you really get to dig into that character's background and history, and it's pretty cool the way he does that throughout
Yeah,
the story, how he weaves it in. It's great, and it just adds that much more to the story. You understand the character, their motivations a lot more that way. but he only reveals it when it's necessary. So like I said, he only reveals a little bit, you know, he keeps the mystery there till it's time to actually, like, it's important to reveal it. Then it's so much more fulfilling as you're reading it, doing it that way. And I loved it.
Well, and another thing is it kind of holds out on letting you know who the best characters and who your favorite characters are, because it's not until really later on that he really develops like Wolf and John
Yeah.
Freeman, who actually become like the baddest ass characters in the book, probably your
Yeah.
favorite, who will be your favorites at the
Yeah.
end. You know what I mean? When it's all said and done, and you don't really. They're such smaller side characters at the beginning of the book
In
that
the beginning. Yeah.
you wouldn't think that like, oh my God, these guys are going to be the I don't know, hero is the right term because everybody
Yeah.
plays their part. And
Yeah. Yeah. There's no clear there. There's no clear heroes. There's one person that's more vile than the rest, right? That is clear. But no one has, like, how would I say that? Like, everyone has their own interest, right? And they act according to their own interests. Like no one's altruistic. There's no righteous person. There's no like even at the end, like when they say, okay, things change, but for how long? And it always comes back to the same, right? In the end, that's what he says. But anyway, as you go through, like you say, they develop characters. You'll like some more than others because some have a little more empathy than others. But in the end, when it comes down to it, it's nations warring, and you
as
know,
nations warring or selfish pride, like even Death himself, who you think might be doing this because, oh, he's mad about certain aesthetics of what he was forced to do. No, it all comes down to the fact that they took of course it's a family thing, you know, so you can kind of get a little, yeah, he's a little righteous in it, but at the same time he's no more benevolent than anybody else. He's still doing it for very selfish reasons. It's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, completely selfish reasons, right? I mean,
yeah, even though he saves the world basically. He saves
yeah,
the
but
world for selfish ass reasons,
well,
motherfucker.
you do it. He does it for love, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's still selfish. I mean, if you're doing it for love and no other reason, then I mean, and you know, he's not very, how would you say, forgiving or sympathetic towards other people's plights if it comes between him and his goal. Like he's just gonna straight up like either get out of my way or suffer the consequences, right? So I mean, he's not, like you say, he's not the nicest character in the world.
But at least he lives with it. Like, at the end, man, like, I don't want to go there. So yeah, death is a contradiction in a few ways in this book, but he really does live by his the code that he follows. So you got to give him that, and I guess that's why I would say ultimately he is the main protagonist, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, for sure. He is the main. Like I say, in the beginning, it relies heavily on him and his story. Then as we go, uh, Jonathan Hickman just elaborates on a lot of these other side characters, and really the world takes on a life of its own, right? It doesn't. No one character. I'd say after maybe 12, 15 issues, no one character controls the narrative anymore. Like it follows so many different storylines, uh, threads that you know it's that's what makes it great because you don't rely on just one character. Like they could have killed Death off probably halfway through. He could have wrote it that way and it still would have worked, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like I mean,
I
so
could see Wolf doing some of his hero stuff at the end of the book, you know, or maybe having I don't know, one of the other human characters do some of it. I don't see why not. Basically, after Babylon gets freed, that's
yeah,
pretty much all Death was needed for.
because then they go off and do their own little thing that doesn't really like they're cute moments, they're fun moments between the two of them, but it doesn't do much to the story itself, like overreaching. But yeah, like like you said, Wolf and John have a history together, which they go on and they elaborate on that, which is a fantastic little story, which is great, like you said. The only story they didn't elaborate on as much, which I would have loved to have seen, is maybe the relation between Crow and Wolf.
Right. Yeah.
He touches on it, but he doesn't go into as much depth as some of the other characters and the history and how they tie together. Like he mentions it, he touches on it a little bit, but he doesn't really elaborate as specifically as he did with other characters, which I would have loved to have seen maybe a little
Because of how devoted the two characters are to each
more
other.
to one another. Yeah, exactly. I would have liked to have seen more, like maybe one issue where it really dives into their backstory together and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would have been really, really cool. Um, at the same time, I don't, I never thought about it until you mentioned it, but yeah, it would be nice to have.
Mm,
Let's see, by the way, I get the story, the characters, and then back to death after a while. And honestly, I'm like, oh yeah, we are with. Oh yeah, exactly, dude. That's the good thing about the book is and then when he cuts away from like the characters that you get like two or three issues on one, you're like, God damn it, go back to him because I was having fun
mm,
in New Shanghai, and I was really enjoying the way the nation is ran and stuff like that, and
mm.
you kind of jump a little bit. I wouldn't say prematurely, but he definitely leaves you wanting to walk in some other people's shoes for a little bit
Yeah.
longer. That's the mark of a good writer. Um,
Mm,
Another thing I love about this book, without talking too much about the end, is it ends perfectly. I mean, the whole thing kind of just is paced perfectly, in my opinion. It
yeah.
doesn't remind me of a lot of ongoing series where it seems like the guy like had a great idea and like he really wrote the hell out of it, but he never knew exactly what he wanted to do with it. But he did have a planned ending, and then he kind of just rushes that planned ending in there at the end. Kind of like what Rick Remender's doing with Deadly Class right now. This doesn't end like feeling like that. This ends like so naturally. So this is if you do pick up and start reading this title, you don't have to worry about anything kind of like feeling like it was rushed or anything out of place. It's like he knew exactly. He had it exactly pinned out when he launched it. You know what I mean? At least
Mm.
that's how it feels.
And another thing I loved is one aspect which was fantastic that I dug was how Babylon sees the world.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I love those parts where you see what's there and then you see how Babylon perceives it, and it's just fantastic. Like I loved all those scenes. Those were some of my favorite scenes where like Babylon and Balloon, their adventures together. I love that part of the book. That was probably some of my favorite was Babylon and Balloon, their little uh, their little trek and journey together. Yeah,
I also like how Babylon would talk about the other horsemen to death when he
yeah,
especially Conquest. Yeah, he always had a joke about Conquest, man, which killed me, man. I was just
yeah,
like, that little kid got a mouth on him. Damn.
yeah, yeah. The Beast. Yeah, and just his innocence, right? He's just yeah, it was great. That part was great. And there's a few lines in it that I love, like when Death and Ranger, they have a bit of a showdown and where Ranger's just talking and then Death's like, "Don't sing it, son, just bring it." Like stop talking and let's do this. Let's get down to business, or Chamberlain at some point like he's like influence, leverage, these are real weapons, instead of when you go into war, like you can have all the weapons, all like the biggest military in the world, but influence and leverage, these are real weapons. I love, like there's a bunch of like little quotes throughout the book that are just I loved, and that really like sum up some of these characters and their attitudes and like their demeanor, which was fantastic. Another character we hadn't talked about yet was Madame President's Antonia LaVey's
Oh,
assistant,
yeah.
Doma Lux. Yeah, she's a cool character. She's got like that domino look to her.
Yeah, and she's a
Mm,
schemy little
yeah,
monkey. Yeah, she's
yeah,
up to something, and
because the Mao Nation have what do they call them? they train, they raise people to be, what are they called? Widowmakers,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And she has her, like, they follow her story quite a bit too, and they go off on her side story. Uh, like I love how he elaborates even on these little minor characters, like on their side stories. Then you have from an offshoot, like a small story part from Antonia LaVey when she starts losing control of the city, and they go down and that one, the rebels or whatever you want to call them, they line them up and they start shooting them, and the one gets away. And later on, that comes back, and they develop a bit of a storyline from that as well, like the rebellion, and that's kind of cool, that little storyline, and they touch on that as well, which is another great aspect of the story.
Yeah. Um, well, that's the neat thing is kind of the first half of the book. It kind of sets up whose side who's on. What you don't know and what you kind of learn as it goes along is Death himself has his own little group of people that are gonna buck what the message says, and that's a key thing to the book. You start learning about, and some of the little characters that you end up really liking are some of Death's like people. So. That's the thing I like is they establish sides, but like it's never like they're opposing except for a couple characters like John Freeman and Wolf really buck the system. You know what I mean? Those are the two of but the rest of the people they kind of work within the system really well
Mhm.
to help Death's plan out, which I think was a really neat way to kind of do subversive behavior because it doesn't turn into the typical young versus old, which it kind of ends up being towards once you get down to it, it's the younger characters rebelling against like no, there's got to be another way than your guys' stupid ass old fucking prophecy, man. Like no, we're not ending it. We don't
Yeah,
want to.
yeah. And another thing that I enjoyed was because they do a lot of flashbacks, right, of Death before, and you see it early on in the flashbacks, Death, because when you're introduced to him first, he's all white, dressed in white, his skin is white. But when you do the flashbacks, the Horsemen, all of them look different. Like some of them, because they get resurrected, right? They always come back. And like Conquest was a woman in his previous life, and then he comes back and he becomes the mother to Ezra Orion, right? And that's kind of cool. And War, I think, was a woman in his previous, and then when he comes back, he's like a dude. So like sex doesn't even, like, I don't even know if they're supposed to be, or it's more androgynous. I'm not sure. They don't really go into it, but I find it cool how they're not exactly the same when they come back.
I
Because Death
love
is almost,
Famine's. I love Famine's design though, especially
yeah,
as the older it gets, like just the crazier, like just
yeah,
yellow green, like skull mutant, like meltdown motherfucker thing that it is. It's
yeah.
so cool
And
looking.
like, and when they first come back, they're like, oh, I hate this part. Like
Yeah,
where they're
he
in
being a
kids'
little kid.
bodies. Yeah, they're like, I hate this part about coming back, being resurrected, fucking in the kid's body. But then what's the other one say? Oh, but it's so fun to watch people's faces when they see they're getting their asses kicked by little kids.
Oh man, that brings me back to my favorite scene of the first trade. And that on the graveyard or on the battlefield where they find the soldier and they want him to tell a joke, and he doesn't. He's just so bewildered that there's these weird kids talking to him, and then they explain to him that they're the horsemen of the apocalypse, and he's like, "But there's only three of you," and they just stomp him to death. You're just like, "Oh my god, that was just
Yeah.
so out of nowhere and brutal, but hilarious."
And another aspect that they get to later on is they don't exactly grow. They kind of cocoon and they go into like a resting period, and then when they break out of their cocoon, they're in their new form, like an older, like a newer version of themselves, an older version, which is pretty cool. I thought that was fun too. Like I like the way the horsemen just wander around and you know just
They're
like fuck
malevolent,
yeah,
but like, yeah, they until the end, they don't really do too much besides wander around and
no,
just torture people. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
like
Really.
Like they're letting it play out and they're seeing how it plays out. Like really, they don't really care what happens to anyone. All their major motivation is just getting back revenge on death for what he did to them for betraying them.
And then
And
being there
everything
on
else,
that day to
yeah,
do their job. Yep.
yeah, that's it. Everything else, they could care less about anyone's motivations or anything, and yeah, which is yeah. Oh man, there's a lot of characters, and they're all really well developed. Did we miss any? What else? Was there any other characters that? There's Crow, Wolf, Death.
We talked about all the cool ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I really like
Oh,
the voice of the message, man, especially when it turns into the beast after
yes, yes. When it attaches to his arm,
yeah.
and it kind of, how would you say it? It has to attach to him to kind of grow till it grows big enough to be independent, kind of like a parasite almost.
Yeah,
Yeah, it feeds
perfectly.
off him. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and that character's like I love its design. And later on, like you see, it takes on a whole
It evolves,
weird.
yeah. It
Yeah,
becomes like
it's a weird. Yeah, and I enjoyed it. It's pretty cool, especially like you'll see. There's one interaction later on with him and Babylon that's just that's I like it. It was fantastic the way they did that. Yeah, yeah.
but like I
Yeah, like
say,
one says, like the Total Recall, the tumor parasite from Total Recall. Yeah, like the one in the stomach, right, where you open it up and it's growing.
it's
Yeah,
Quado, yeah.
yeah,
Free your mind.
mm,
But I gotta agree with Juan, man. Like, I really hope that it doesn't get picked up for a show. In my opinion, at this point, the subject matter is unfilmable. I mean, like, it would have to be a couple $1 million an episode to get it to look as good as it should. And I wouldn't want anybody to bother. You know what I mean? Like, they're not gonna
mm,
do it right. I just watched the Why the Last Man show, and they fucked that up so bad. I couldn't even
yeah,
imagine some TV studio trying to handle something like as complex as this if they couldn't get something as menial complex as Why the Last Man. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus,
yeah,
they really butchered that. So
mm,
kind of put me off adaptations for a little bit.
yeah.
It was that
Uh,
bad.
well, there's a lot. Like everything's getting adapted now, either as a show or a movie. It's crazy. Like it's for sure there's going to be a bunch of flops in there.
But I don't even know if I've ever heard of this getting picked up. I would say if anything of Hickman's that's weird that might get a show that I would say is filmable would be like Black Monday. That would make a really cool TV
Mm.
show if somebody did it right. I'd say like if
What
they got like
about
Nicholas Winding Refn to do it, like that
yeah?
would be awesome.
What about the Manhattan Project?
Yeah, I would like to see that animated though, to tell you the truth. I
Yeah,
would love to see them
yeah,
just do the comic book, just put it to motion and do it animated. That would be hilarious because I absolutely adore that comic, but I don't see it filmable in live action because it's such a damn cartoon. I mean, it
yeah,
really is. You got Werner von Braun in a Nazi mech suit and Enrico Fermi with a like skull head encased in a yeah, so it's ridiculous, really. If they did try to do it, it would end up too much like the Umbrella Academy TV show. And I appreciate the adaptation of that. That's one that I actually like, even though how different it is from the movie or from the comic book. And I don't want to see the Manhattan Projects covered like that. So if they do it, just animate it. Just do it animated. Maybe get this. Maybe change up the anime style. Do it like Super Crooks. I didn't mind that because that's pretty much just like the comic book, but it was done in a Madhouse anime style, which I thought was
mhm,
beautiful. So that could work.
yeah, yeah, man. Like if you haven't read this yet, I strongly recommend you guys go pick up East of West and give this a read because it's a fantastic, fantastic comic. And probably, like Johnny said, probably one of the best comics to be released in the last 15 years. Seriously, it's very good.
Yeah, it stacks up. Like you can put it there with Sandman and Fables and all the Vertigo classics and like the Watchmen. You know what I mean? In my opinion, like it goes with all of those books. It's modern masterpiece. It's one of the best that you'll ever see, in my opinion. And
Mhm.
this is coming from a guy who writes all of his books are great except for his Marvel stuff. But he's he really outdid himself with this. I don't know if he's ever gonna be able to touch this level of greatness again because I mean I really like some of his stuff after it, but I think this might be a swan song, and I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
And
Because
it's only 10 trades long, so it's not a super long book or hard to get a hold of. You can get all the so you really have no excuse not to check this book out. Going back to Joey's first point.
yeah, and like I think what makes this book so much better than the others is his character development. Like
Yeah.
even the most vile characters you love because he develops them so well and gives them so much life, so much character that even though you hate these characters, you love them because they play their role so well, and and he just does a fantastic job of bringing it to life. And like, and I think that's where this book shines is his character development is like just fantastic, second to none in this book.
Pow pow. Yeah, I completely agree.
Mm.
So aside from
Like,
that, you got any last words?
nope, read the fucking thing, man. Go pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't say this too often, but this comic is pretty much perfection. I don't give this score. I don't believe in a 10 out of 10, but I don't know what the hell else to score this book. You know what I mean? So it's one of the few that I give a 10 out of 10 to. Like they're very rare
Yeah,
for me.
I mean, there's something in this for everyone. You know, there's the Western vibe, there's a horror vibe, uh, you've got the sci-fi vibe to it. You got like some kung fu like action stuff to it. The art is fantastic. I mean, I can't think of a single bad thing to say about this book. Like you said, the pacing is great. The character development is fantastic. I mean, there's something for everyone. Like, I mean, I can't see like if you're a fan of horror, you're gonna read it and you're gonna pick up on a lot of stuff and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I like the tone. The tone is fantastic. Like I
It's
mean,
gory. It never stops being gory too. Like there's
yeah,
always
yeah, like yeah, and it definitely maintains that Western vibe all the way through. Then you have all like the technology and the weird kind of futuristic stuff, which gives it like a kind of more of a sci-fi vibe to it. Like, and it's all blended together perfectly. Like nothing seems like it's a far reach or like it all works. It's fantastic, fantastic.
and within the world that he set up and the context that he gave us at
Hmm.
the beginning, every single thing that transpires in the book fits to the
Perfectly.
end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
pow pow. But yeah, like Joey said, buy and read this, man. It is so good, and like I said, it's only 10 trades long. That's decent size, but it's not super long, and it's not going to be super expensive to get a hold of. So do yourself a favor and just even go on Comixology and read it for cheap first if you're still weary, and just admit how wrong you've been your whole life for not reading it yet. But I kid. But yeah, that's the truth, man. Like this is oddly still kind of a hidden gem in a weird way, which I don't get. But Hickman's getting a little more known every day, so I don't know. Maybe someday this one will get the spotlight it deserves. But mm, at the same time, I kind of hope it doesn't because I kind of like being able to tell people, hey, check this out. You know what I mean? If everybody knows about it, you don't get that right anymore, and I hate losing that. But until next time and we find the next book to have that right to show you, hey, check this out, nobody's talking about this. We are Pink Buzz. We are a product of graphic vandalism, and you know what that means. That means don't stop reading awesome comics like this, never stop looking for awesome comics like this, don't stop watching amazing films, and don't stop supporting excellent music. Oh, and if you don't mind, if you're new to the channel, throw us a like, throw us a subscription, man. Help other people find these books. It's not really for us. I could care less if you subscribe to my channel, but I really want people to know about this work. And
Hmm.
um, helping feeding the algorithm is a way to help turn other people on to these masterpieces. And hey, do your part. All right. Until next
And
time. Okay, go ahead.
and also we have Marco Rudy coming on the show on Friday.
Right, right.
Maybe
Yeah,
I could
that's
throw
on.
that in there. Yeah, this Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Marco Rudy will be on the show. I'll be talking to him about his work in comics. He's done some work for the Big Two, and he started his first self-published book this year, so we'll be talking about that as well. So Marco Rudy will be on the show on Friday, so don't miss that.
I'm gonna kiss his ass so hard for that Winter Soldier book you did. Oh my God, that thing is so good. Him and Ayla Cott. Oh man, you don't hear me talk about Marvel books as much as glowingly as I talk. Well, we'll talk about that one when he's on. Mwah. But until next time, take it easy, guys. Late.